Okay, I think we're ready to get started. Hello everyone, it's been a very busy morning already. I think we had a fantastic start with Tim Peake as our event keynote. Thank you for joining. Just a quick show of hands in the audience. I can see a few members of the Pentaho community. Who in the room is a data practitioner who has the task of wrangling with data? Okay, wow, good for you. Well, welcome. My name's Ajay. I normally take it in turns to present with Lionel. Lionel, hello, is taking a seat on this one. But we wanted to put together our thoughts for you today on the impact that we're seeing across private equity, across enterprise, of companies that are either raising funding or dealing with transformation at board level and at operation level, really to drive better performance in their businesses. The hat that I'm wearing today from Hitachi gives me a purview over hundreds of customers around the world that are doing exactly that, and similarly for Lionel, there's been a change, hasn't there? Certainly from Big Data London last year coming into this year, we're definitely in the age of AI, and what we're seeing as we look at the performance of businesses, there's a clear distinction between those businesses that are data fit, as we've categorized them in our research, and those that are on the way, are on the path to being that. Data fit companies, what distinguishes them is that they're faster, they're more efficient, they're more innovative, and as we see the trajectory that those companies are on, they're the companies in the coming 5 years that are going to win. Speed is also something that's taken a lot of us by notice, by surprise. Getting to that milestone benchmark of 100 million users, whether it's for an app or for a product like a credit card or even a train. Instagram, back in the days, 30 months. TikTok, much faster, 9 months. And with OpenAI, 2 months to get to that scale. So the speed of how we're seeing the technologies to enable AI and the components for businesses to become more performant, more data fit is only accelerating. So we think back almost 40 years to when Geoffrey Hinton wrote his seminal paper around backpropagation, how to train neural networks that's evolved into large language models, through to last year, the launch of the chat interface to LLMs with OpenAI and ChatGPT. That 40-year period seems to be accelerating. And it's accelerating to the point where, having digital assistants on our devices, having the impact on work in our organizations is something we're all grappling with. And what we'll go into is, what is that impact on work, on organizations, on employees and on customers that we can start to solve for? The idea that at the end of this decade, a lot of the work that is being performed in our organizations across industries is going to be augmented. We can already see that here today. Across every industry, whether it's healthcare, life sciences to legal, there's an impact that's already started to move more of those day-to-day common tasks into more automated or augmented activities driven by AI, driven by traditional AI, not just the new Gen AI capability for generating new content, but also through the maturing of data modeling, building machine learning models from that data and extracting value from that data, as we heard before, whether it is centralized, if you've got the Snowflake, Cloudera model, bringing all that data into one place, or Starburst, distributed for data that is in situ. But it's really then applying that data to these common tasks that we at Hitachi see day in, day out in our work with our customers, everything from energy through to railways through to healthcare. So as that impact is starting to roll out into businesses, we're starting to see take-up predominantly in day-to-day operations. There's a maturity of the ML modelling, the digital twin technologies becoming embedded in day-to-day operations. And one of the most interesting areas for us is around decisioning, how that decisioning, whether it was traditionally with experts, is becoming augmented to bring more data together, whether that is OT data, operational data from video, from voice, from images, and then augmenting that with enterprise data. It could be an ERP system or a CRM. And that fusion of data from all of the companies that Lionel and I have purview over seems to still taking us back to this bottleneck. There are many initiatives that I think are underway across the audience here today where there is a failure rate, there always has been, around data science, AI initiatives, and the chasm to overcome is still there to drive value and move those AI projects that are often desired and expected out of POC and into full production, and then scale. Well, it takes us back to, and I'm in full agreement with Kirsten here, the expectation over AI, the expectation over driving value to a customer experience or an employee experience still comes back to the fundamentals of what we've been all working with for many years, which is the governance of that data. Do we trust that data? What's the quality of the data that we're feeding into training AI and driving that performance in a business? So when we look at our customers, and we sit down with them and we survey them, the conversation then comes back to those companies that are data fit aren't just doing one or two of these things. The areas for data compliance, data 360 and so on, it's how do we do all of these well. So in terms of data compliance, it's the same as it ever was, but more. The quality of that data, are there biases in that data? How can we trust the data as a single version of truth to feed into training models? Do we have the ability to have accurate data around location and customer to build domain-specific models that are going to drive automation? And that data access problem, we all saw it with Hadoop and the promise of data lakes. We all see it with cloud data warehouses as well, whether it is a Snowflake or whether it is a Databricks. The data marketplace that is really democratizing data, built on single version of truth, of data being mastered, built on data that is trusted. Where did it come from? Who created it? When did it change? Those are the fundamentals. I think what's interesting for us, though, is how data fit companies are approaching this slightly differently, in that they're looking at their existing as is, and we'll look at a case study in a second, their current situation and how to drive cost savings in year to then apply to prudent decisions on what to put into innovation and perhaps some digital experience driven by AI, ML, automation. I think we'll all appreciate there isn't an endless supply of funding. Business cases that always get signed off at an exec level can be challenging to convince people of the value of data, whether it's the outcome that's desired. If anything, Gen AI has given us a reason to put something new onto the agenda with an expectation that we can drive benefit to the organisation from that, provided we've got trust in our data, we've got a single version of truth, and we're able to access that data from across those different sources. So mission critical, there's lots of operations across the whole of Hitachi globally that we run for other brands that are mission critical. In creating products as software products for market under the Pentaho brand, we can unpack this and just share a little bit more about how these can quite easily plug together. It's the speed to value that gets you to mission critical. Mission critical is fine if you can solve that problem, but the cost and the speed to value is quite often what makes the difference from emerging from POC, getting the buy-in of stakeholders that need to be convinced, and fully operationalizing and scaling a technology. Decisioning. We saw a lot of those tasks are augmenting or automating simple decisions. The more complex decisions that run in day-to-day operations across healthcare, life sciences and energy allow Hitachi to really bring to bear the full portfolio that we have as software products and how they plug and play and connect. So opening it up to see how we can automate and look at inspection of content, data, images, video, as well as enterprise data to start to generate insights. From those insights, drive notifications for operational day-to-day data users. We've got an example here in the energy sector where remote areas that of critical infrastructure are monitored through either drones or through video, and the detection of the integrity of that infrastructure becomes key. That's certainly where we see hotspots of natural disasters, that time to recovery for infrastructure to come back online is important. The ability to automate forecasting, prediction and recommendation, and then pull all of that together, whether it is images, video, data from an ERP system to drive a recommendation. Let's keep peeling this back to see what really sits behind this. So I think across everybody's data estate, we're familiar. There is data that is distributed. Data has entropy. It's just the physics of it. It will always, as it's created, as it gets used, start to disperse. Being able to tap into all that distributed data to create a single view and driving that through to some intelligence and making that plug and play. The simple example of question and recommendation really resides on the ability to pull data together from those different silos. Peeling that back another layer again, we might have ERP systems, we might have assets in the field. There might be, as we've seen earlier this morning, a snowflake, a starburst, a distributed, a centralized data lake. All of these are components that sit within a CIO's or CTO's existing estate. Being able to put that into a large language model that is foundational, that we can plug and play, that is pre-trained, is the accelerator. Gets over that chasm of POC and turns that potential into reality. I think the view that many in the community that are Pentaho users over the last 10 years have become very advanced users of the data integration capability that sits there. Now introducing that AI, ML, large language component that drives outcomes that are important to business performance and becoming data fit. I think we've got a burgeoning well of active users out there that are now bringing that to the fore. Peeling this back again, another layer, I think what we're seeing is for operational data, application of data to AI, ML, having that productionized model that is running in a model manager that is driving inference, recommendation, and so on, is part of the picture. But the reality is that day-to-day customer sentiment changes. The environment changes, the weather changes, events happen from time to time. So having an array of shadow models being fed with specific parts of that live data, being able to take live data, feeding that through to a large language model, an AI model, machine learning driven applications, but also taking the same live feed and feeding that into an array of shadow models allows us to manage to adapt to circumstances, and then always having a model ready to plug in to that existing data pipeline. That plug and play ability is really what drives that business continuity with a digital asset like a digital twin. So we see digital twins as a digital representation of a physical system, the ability to keep track with changes of that real physical environment. Behind the scenes, it's really our digital model manager, digital advisor technology that is there, that is keeping that service up and running. That applies to trains, which we all take from day to day. It applies to aircraft engines. It applies to buildings. It can even apply to a business process, such as mortgage applications or insurance claims handling. And having that operational insight being driven with some augmented decisioning drives those recommendations to the expert in the field. So how do we get to data fit? I think in the research that Lionel and I have covered across a range of companies, having a structured approach to doing this seems sensible, always starting with a business case, whether it's for AI or any analytics. What's the outcome that's being driven? Next step in that methodology, as data practitioners, we all inherit whatever we inherit, whether it's a data lake, whether it's a mess, whether it is a failed implementation of an ERP system. We've all seen it. That leaves you with dealing with the data that you have and how reliable that is. Building that trust in data, that whole lap of the race, even to get to the starting line, to start to roll through that work of building AI and data products. All of that data discovery, data democratization is up front. Understanding lineage, understanding quality, understanding who the business owners are, really comes to fore in this example here. Unnamed for obvious reasons, but large global bank. Those of us that have worked in large global banks understand they are regulated. They operate under strict conditions. The data silos that are dotted around the bank, around the landscape, come through all the acquisitions, the normal change that happens in organisation that didn't get stitched together. So when we approached the situation this bank was in to become more compliant, to drive its digital transformation, how does it fund that? Where is it going to find the investment for the CFO to sign off on the first phase of this journey? The way in which we do that with the Pentaho suite is to really dive into understanding in an automated way what could be petabytes of data. In this case, over 200 petabytes of data. I think after large global banks, you're into telcos and ISPs that hold that kind of data in their data centers. So massive amounts of data where going back to nearly 27 years, not really an understanding of is that data needed, should it be kept, who created it, is the product that is being driven off that data, a type of loan contract still in existence. Taking stock of that, being able to find the savings to then apply to a digital experience that looks a little like this. So we come back to the tasks that we want to automate the innovation that we want to create, but the plug-and-play components around optimizing data, around building with foundation models for LLM that are specific to what has come through data discovery, building that enterprise knowledge graph, and applying the out-of-the-box data models gives us that accelerator. But I think what's come clear to Lionel and I as we see all of you starting to innovate and look to apply a lot of the proliferation of AI, ML technologies that from open source that have appeared in the last 18 months, is the user experience. That user experience of being able to understand the business context, understand the data in context, and then to start off with no code, to build a prototype very quickly, drag and drop, to start to then use synthetic data that you can generate from the data that has been profiled to create a sample model as a prototype, to operate that and see what might the results be, what would the return on investment be if that program was taken forward. Having a user experience that is intuitive, drag and drop, really goes back to the heritage of the Pentaho product suite, which is no code, then expanding to low code, and then as we've opened it up now, plugging in Jupyter Notebooks and Jupyter Lab. There's lots of steps in this journey, but I think a lot of the traditional ones come back to that data quality, data governance, single version of truth, and compliance. And the horse doesn't really get out of the gates until those boxes are ticked. That discipline, that housekeeping around data, the management of that is really what separates from what we've seen a data fit company to a company that is going to find it easier to raise funding from shareholders, from the market, to drive better profitability. And the dividend from that is the time to market, the speed at which they can innovate with building their data products. So just to summarize, at Hitachi, with the Pentaho suites, we've now opened that up to be compatible with just about every data tool that we can see here today at Big Data London. The interoperability, if you like, the Swiss Army knife of Pentaho is really what's driving and keeping that community growing and healthy, but then expanding to operational use cases that cover compliance, generative AI now, and that self-service data access with data marketplaces. As we see it across many of the companies that we work with, data is mission critical. The AI products that are being introduced into embedded into line of business are then themselves becoming mission critical to run well. Your success is critical to us. We'd love to speak to you about how we can rapidly put together our technologies to help you achieve your outcome. And if you want to do that, take a picture and we will have a team work with you to get you started. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for listening.